It's recording.
Beautiful. So you want to do an intro and then throw to me?
Yeah, ready to roll. I think this is entirely unscripted and spontaneous.
Just a live cross, as they say.
Okay.
We're rolling? Okay, so we're ready when you are.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. As you all know, with the Jewish holidays upon us, Rosh Hashanah starting on Friday and then 10 days later, Yom Kippur, our community in Melbourne is not able to practice the Jewish faith as they have done in previous years. Now, religious freedom, in fact, freedoms generally, is a major theme of the Institute of Public Affairs, the IPA, and our good friend Gideon Rozner is with us today. Gideon, welcome.
Always great to be back with the AJ, David.
So tell me, what's from your perspective, and I know you've been out there trying to defend various freedoms in the light of the extraordinarily severe lockdowns that we've seen in Melbourne, with the Jewish holidays upon us, what's your perspective?
Well, look, I'm obviously a Jewish person and somebody who is seeking to, in any way I can, practice my faith over the period and who can't. But I'm also somebody who's works full time in talking about freedom and individual liberty and things like that, as you mentioned. So my first response is that this is as you said, this is an extraordinary incursion into religious freedom. It means, as you said, for the first time since 1788, the Melbourne's Jewish community will not be permitted as a reality of regulation to practice our religion freely, and that is a fundamental human right, just like the right to free speech, freedom of movement, freedom of assembly and political protest, and the freedom to practice your faith. And these are all things that we've seen stifled by the response to the coronavirus. Now, the overarching point is this. This is, in a broad sense, if you take a step back, this is a triumph of the bureaucracy and of the bureaucratic managerial estate over the individual and the family and the community. And we've seen that in the fact that you can't go to work, you can't go to school, you can't go to the pub with your friends, you can't visit your sick relatives interstate. I mean, everybody's got a story. And in this case, something that is so intimate and so fundamental to people's identities and their core beings is being prevented by a litany of, frankly, irrational bans and restrictions and petty rules that we've seen since March.
Well, presumably there are some rational precautions that one could agree to, and we've seen in many other fields of life, certainly in Sydney and elsewhere, other places, social distancing, hand hygiene, masks if it's in a severe outbreak, particular protections for the elderly and vulnerable. Even with all those things in place, it seems that Victoria has this sort of sledgehammer approach to people making their own judgments.
Yeah, and you've raised a really important point. Look, I've been vocally anti most elements of these lockdowns basically since April. I've been very, very cynical, but I've always accepted that the coronavirus is a serious disease. I've always accepted the need to do something to prevent the spread. I've always supported responsible social distancing measures. I was wearing a mask before, but when the experts and the science was telling us that masks didn't matter. Before in Victoria they made them compulsory and threatened us to fine them if they didn't wear them. But let's get down to the practical side of this. What would it require for the Jewish community to be able to observe Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? Well, for one thing, you'd need a minyan. Now, yes. I can't for the life of me understand. Now, packing everybody into Caulfield Synagogue by the hundreds, that is probably not safe at the moment. We can accept that. That's a great shame. But if that is the limitation, that you could say, okay, it's an extraordinary pandemic, et cetera, et cetera. But I cannot for the life of me understand why somebody, and there are plenty of people in the Melbourne Jewish community with reasonable sized backyards, cannot have 9 of their adult men friends over to have a minyan on our holiest most days of the year. And the fact that very soon, according to the government's roadmap, which again I'm cynical about, there will be 10, outdoor gatherings of 10 people or more permitted. Why that couldn't just be rushed forward in the case of this one holiday and an exemption be made, I don't understand. And that is the cruel indifference and the cruel reality of what it happens with any sort of one-size-fits-all government restriction, especially when it's applied to the entire population of the state of Victoria, which is 6.5 million people. So short answer, look, we'd have to live with this virus. It will definitely change how we observe Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur this year, but there has to be a happy compromise. And the fact that there isn't one is just another grave injustice, just like the arrest of Zoe Bueller in Ballarat, just like the woman Sarah Casey who couldn't see her dying father. There are real human consequences to this, and especially at a time when so many people are struggling genuinely with these restrictions, for good or ill. Surely it is a time to show a bit of compassion and a bit of flexibility and allow people to access a great source of strength for many people, which is their faith in their religion.
It doesn't matter whether you are particularly observant or not. There are some important matters of principle that you've raised, Gideon, and I will, after we've finished our discussion, put into the video a picture that was taken within the last 48 hours from the White House lawn, where there were 700 or 800 VIPs there, and a group of religious Jewish guys decided that they would take the opportunity, and they were spaced outdoors safely, and they went through the Mincha prayer, the afternoon prayer, and it was not seen as a risk to even the senior VIPs that were invited into that White House event for the signing of the peace agreement.
And you make a good point, though, as well, because not only was it safe on an epidemiological basis and it met all the social distancing requirements, but presumably it was also okay on a halachic level as well. What that tells me is that, as you well know, as we all know, religious scholars and our rabbis are extremely clever people. If the Victorian government said, okay, look, here's what you can't do. You can't all go to shul. You can't, gather in clusters of groups. You can't do this and can't do that. If you gave those parameters to the Beth Din or a group of rabbis, that would say, okay, well, here's how we can do it in such a way that's safe and in accordance with guidelines, but also meets the letter of Jewish law as well. We can find a way out of this. We are just not being given the opportunity.
Okay. Well, look, thank you very much, Gideon, for your time. I know that you're busy, and keep up the good fight. And we think that there are ways forward, and we'll continue to make those sort of representations to the Victorian government that there should be some flexibility. I'm not aware of any significant evidence that there have been large numbers of cases caught outdoors, if any.
But look, thank you so much for having me on. Shana Tova, and Lashana Haba B'Chofesh.
Shana Tova to you, Gideon, and see you again soon.
Yes, thanks, David.